During this video, I will be spoiling just about anything that occurs within this episode of Total Drama Island's newest season. I have done my best to ensure the title and thumbnail spoil as little as possible, but for the rest of this video, I cannot make any promises for this episode I'm talking about or any prior episodes in the same season if applicable. With all that being said, you have been warned. Hey everybody, Kiji here. We're back again with another episode of the Total Drama Island revival, reboot, whatever you want to call it, reaction / discussion video, this time on episode 7. So let's get into this. So starting off, we get a short little montage of Priya doing more training for Millie. It's always fun to see those scenes, and I'm definitely noticing a pattern that they seem to start off episodes. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it definitely seems to be a recurring trend throughout these episodes, so that's something. After that happens, we pretty much get right into the challenge starting. We get like a brief montage of other characters and what they're up to, but it's extremely brief. So it kind of reminds me of like Island days where like the episode would start and Chris would just already be explaining the challenge and what it is to the other contestants. It vaguely reminds me of that, and I don't know. I like that we still have stuff like that, but I've never personally been the biggest fan of that. I like, especially because of this season in particular, I think this season up to this point has definitely done a great job of establishing character dynamics and reflecting on the past episode and stuff before the challenges start. And I feel like those usually do a great job at building up what's going to occur in that episode. That's not to say this episode doesn't still do that. It's just I prefer when it happens before the challenge starts, I guess you could say. Okay, so another thing, before the challenge properly starts, we have the merge. It is episode 7, 10 characters remain, and we are on the merge. I don't dislike that decision. I don't dislike it. It's incredibly early, but it's not bad. Yeah, I don't know. It definitely feels extremely early for a merge to occur, I guess you could say. And especially because of how this challenge in particular plays out and who goes home this episode, it feels like it really didn't need to be a merge episode to begin with. Like, they could have just as easily merged the following episode, so that, spoiler alert, there's a double elimination this episode. But they could have just waited till the merge for next episode and then have an 8-person merge. I think that would have felt more natural and worked better, but also there's nothing inherently wrong with the 10-character merge. It just, I don't know, it definitely feels very, very early, and it feels like to some degree we got a little gypped on just the teams in general for this season. Like, I remember after my first watch, I had still not fully remembered the team names even because it didn't feel like they were getting brought up enough. But I don't know. It's just if anything has struck out to me as odd at this point in the season, it's definitely that the idea of the teams and stuff feels like a little bit of an afterthought almost. It's not inherently a bad thing, but it does feel a little odd. So the challenge itself is about collecting the first person to collect a cassowary egg and bring it back to Chris intact. That's pretty much it. I mean, it's a very simple but good challenge. It's the kind of challenge that naturally brings out good interactions between characters and stuff. However, Chris decides that the cast should work in pairs. So the pairings ended up being Priya and Millie, obviously, Wayne and Raj, of course, Bowie and Emma again, of course. And then the other two are Julia and Chase, and then Z and Ripper. Z and Ripper is a fun pairing. I like any scene those two have had together up to this point. So especially this episode was really funny. I really enjoyed those moments. And then Julia and Chase, as we're gonna see, doesn't actually last as long as it probably should. But it's decent interactions as well, just because those characters are both so good in general. And before, during, at several points in the challenge throughout this episode, Wayne is continuing to try to subtly encourage Raj to comfortably, like, come out to him, or he's trying to let him know that he will be accepting without blatantly telling him that he's going to accept him, because because he probably assumes that the second he does that, Raj will know, like, oh, you saw it happen and you were trying to force me to out earlier, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. So I don't know. I think it's handled well overall, and that's the most important part. I think it's handled well. From there, we get Julia trying to attempt a strategy, which is trying to get Chase to get back together with Emma, presumably just to get him out of her hair for a bit. But what her plan actually is to get Chase booted, which is definitely a plan. I don't know. It's odd because, like, in theory, it's a good plan because Chase is, he's a good competitor. It's definitely been well established at this point that Chase, to some degree, is a pretty strong competitor. And we only really know of his one weakness being catapult. So odds are he's going to do relatively well in just about any challenge, and that does make him a well-rounded threat in the grand scheme of things. So I can see why Julia would want to target him. She tries to convince Ripper to vote for Chase, which might have worked. I'm honestly not sure. It's kept kind of vague. From there, she tries to get Bowie to side with her. He agrees, or actually, that's later in the episode. Never mind. Hold on. Okay, so Julia is talking to Chase, trying to rope him into her little alliance or whatever, when really she's planning on getting him booted. I think it's odd, not because I think Julia, can do better or anything like that, so much as it's pretty clear that Chase seems to view himself as hey, I'd be down for an alliance. Like, he seems like a willing ally, and for whatever reason, Julia doesn't really try taking him in that way, at least this episode. I guess it's yet to be seen, if you will, future episodes. But for this particular episode, I think it's a little odd that she would take that approach. But what do I know? From there, we get a Rajbo scene, which is great. I love it a lot. It is fantastic, actually. But I will be saving that for a discussion about it for the Rajbo video essay that will definitely be coming next after this video. From there, we get a moment with Bowie and Emma, where Emma's trying to check in on Bowie, see how his relationship stuff is going, and she does her little dance, and it's funny. Okay, yeah. From there, Julia starts talking with Bowie about potentially getting Chase booted. And during her confessional, she starts tallying up the votes she'll need to do so, and ends up holding up 5 fingers and realizes it's another fun fourth wall break kind of gag there. They did a similar one with Z the prior episode, actually, but here I think it's a little funnier because it's not as blatant. Priya and Millie, we cut back to them. They're trying to capture eggs as well, and at some point Priya ends up saving Millie from a cassowary, which is nice. Okay, so for Z and Ripper, the thing with Z is that for this episode, I think it was implied like during the beginning when Chris did like the announcement that the challenge was happening. I think Z was in the middle of drinking soda and then like either spit it out or got it stuck in his throat or something like that when it happened. Because when he did, he couldn't stop hiccuping. But then Ripper goes with Z, or chooses to go with Z, because he thinks that Z's hiccups will be a good distraction while he gets away with his egg. Come to find out, Z's hiccup happens to sound a lot like one of the cassowary birds, or sounds like the cassowary birds, like cries or calls or whatever. So Ripper comes up with the plan to have Z dressed up as a cassowary bird and essentially try to flirt with the bird, which actually does work to some degree. We get a mildly funny moment where Z is like, I'm not ready to be tied down or anything like that, which, listen, I'm not saying it's confirmation of anything, but I would very much be down for Arrow Ace Z. I would definitely be okay with that. Again, I don't think it's like a confirmed thing, but it would be cool. What was after that? We get a little bit of banter between Bowie and Julia as they try to race to Chris with their eggs. However, Ripper is the one that manages to get to Chris first with an egg, and he ends up accidentally, or I don't know, I suppose it wasn't really an accident, but he ends up spiking the cassowary egg in excitement, and Chris ends up denying him the win as a result because it's not an intact egg. Personally, I think that's a little wrong. Like, that's kind of a robbery, but fine. Like, the Chris clearly saw that the egg was intact when Ripper brought it to him, but whatever, it works, I guess. But after that, Priya and Millie immediately show up to Chris, like, directly after that happens. And Millie tries to get Priya to take the immunity herself, since she was the one that got them the eggs in the first place, but Priya was like, no, it's okay, you take it. And then Millie's like, okay. And she does. And then Priya gets mad for some reason. I don't know. It's, but of course, though, the thing is, though, Priya doesn't get mad, like, blatantly. Like, she gets mad, like, or gets kind of, I don't want to say mad. Mad's a bit much. It's more like kind of mildly upset in a confessional. And it's like, okay, like, sure, that's true. It's true that she did, like, kind of take that from you, but in a literal sense, you did offer that to her. Like, I just think it's kind of interesting how up to this point, Millie and Priya's friendship seems good, but in reality, they have not been properly communicating with each other, like, at all. Positively or negatively, I feel like, and I think it's building up tension between them, is what I'm getting at. It's building up tension between them that'll definitely be interesting to see play out later on. With that being said, though, that means Millie takes immunity, so Millie is the one who wins immunity for this episode, but when this occurs, there's still about 7 minutes left in the episode, but the challenge still keeps going for the other competitors for whatever reason. So we end up just having an episode that ends its challenge really early, but continues having stuff occur after it. It was a very odd decision, I feel like. It almost kind of took me out of the episode, because I just kept sitting there wondering, like, why is any of this still happening? Like, this is so weird. And of course, the worst part is that some of the most important, or two of the biggest important parts of this episode happen after the challenge supposedly is supposed to have ended. The first one being Wayne and Raj continuing to fight for Cassowary Bird, but eventually they kind of, get themselves knocked out and get sent off a cliff. And during the process, not only do they massively hurt themselves to a drastic degree. But Raj ends up finally telling Wayne what has been happening with him and Bowie, and Wayne's like happy for him and that kind of thing. That was a really touching moment. I really liked that. Even if I feel like it came just a little out of nowhere for that specific context, I am glad that it happened. Again, we get another moment between Z and the cassowary bird, which is funny. Again, Z arrow ace real. I think his fake beak ends up coming off, and he tries running away from the bird, and so that's funny. Oh yeah, and then from there, Chase and Emma end up or they decide to look together for eggs, since Chase doesn't really know where Julia went, and Emma doesn't really know where Bowie went or whatever. So they end up deciding to work together, and they end up getting stuck in a cassowary bird cave, or cave. That's what it was, cave. And during this, Chase actually got a chocolate bar from Julia to give to Emma in an attempt to win her back, essentially. And during his attempt at doing this, Emma gets distracted and isn't looking at Chase, and Chase drops half the chocolate bar, and then when he picks it up, he's like, "Oh, sorry, babe," and then Emma's like, "You're finally apologizing for what you did?" And it's like, oh no, it's like, oh man, she's forgiving him, and he didn't even truly apologize. It's a misunderstanding, but honestly speaking, though, I think that is a pretty funny moment and a pretty funny way for them to get back together in the first place over such a simple misunderstanding like that. After this happens, they manage to get out of the cave and back to Chris. And by that point, everyone besides Wayne and Raj have made it back to Chris now. Wayne and Raj end up being the last ones to arrive to Chris. And then Chris decides, okay, we're going to conclude the challenge there. Millie already won, whatever. By the time the challenge actually ends, we have 4 minutes left in the episode. So this challenge went on 3 minutes longer than it needed to, and in the process got 2 characters injured and a couple back together. I'm not saying that the episode is bad for doing that, so much as the order is completely wrong here. Millie should not have gotten immunity that early, because had she have in any other episode, the challenge would be over. I can't think of a single Total Drama episode where a character wins immunity and then the challenge just keeps going. I don't think that's a thing. I don't think that's ever happened in Total Drama, and so it felt very, very off that this episode managed to do something like that. It probably sounds nitpicky at this point to even bring it up, but I really do want to emphasize just how weird that felt for me personally. I don't know if others agree with me or not, but that's how it felt. We get to the elimination ceremony. We get some explanations for why Julia may be on the chopping block, or Ripper, and what have you. The misunderstanding surrounding Ripper spiking the bird egg is really funny. I found that pretty entertaining, and the way the cast reacted to it was really funny. But in conclusion, Wayne and Raj are essentially too injured to continue, and Chef ends up convincing Chris that, hey, these two need to go to a hospital, get him out of here, or something to that effect. And Wayne and Raj are carried away to the nearest hospital or whatever to get them checked out, because again, they got beat the heck up by cassowary bird and then dropped off a cliff and hit rocks at several points. So it's feasibly, yes, they would need to go to a hospital after such a stunt. It feels a little cheapened by the fact that a couple episodes prior, we see Wayne get steamrolled by a couple boulders. I don't know. I know this is Total Drama and that kind of thing happens all the time. But for this moment in particular, it's man, that he's taken worse hits earlier this season, right? I don't know. It felt especially noteworthy, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Besides that, though, I mean, Wayne and Raj, they were a very fun duo. They more than exceeded my expectations of them. I truly thought they were going to be kind of annoying, honestly, like another Katie Sadie type deal, but maybe like more eccentric or whatever. But as it turns out, they ended up getting a great plot involving Bowie, and even outside of that, they were a very entertaining duo. I do think they're a little too attached at the hip at the moment, and I do hope that a future, like the next season, does a better job establishing them as individuals, even if their names were listed together in the original cast reveal. I do hope they get treated more like individuals the next season, because they clearly are different characters with different goals and whatnot. Yeah, otherwise, I don't really have much problem with them, like, going here. Like, I don't think the problem is them being eliminated at this point. I just don't love the execution of it, I think. And I especially don't like that we don't get a final moment between Raj and Bowie and Wayne before they get eliminated. And I especially don't like that we don't get a final moment between Raj and Wayne and Bowie before they get sent off to the hospital. I think it's very odd that we didn't get a moment between those two or three, or whatever you want to phrase it as. I don't know. That kind of stuck out to me. It probably sounds like I didn't like this episode, but to conclude, no, this is a good episode. Trust me when I say that this is a good episode, and I still laughed out loud at several points, mainly the Z-Bird stuff. That was hilarious. It feels like everything Z does is hilarious, but the character really is just that funny. Generally speaking, though, I think I am confident in saying that so far, this is probably my least favorite episode, but I feel like I've explained enough of my critiques with it for you guys watching to understand where I'm coming from on that. From what I recall of the episodes we have coming up, I think there's a good chance this will remain as my least favorite episode of the season. Not a guarantee, but pretty likely, I'd say. We'll see, but that's how I'm feeling at the moment. And keep in mind, just because this is probably my least favorite episode of the season does not mean I don't love a lot of moments in it, or just generally like the episode as a whole. You have to understand that I love this new season. Like, I truly do love this new season. It's probably my favorite season of the entire series currently. And the first 6 episodes, I feel, have been great, while this episode in particular has just felt good, in my opinion. But that is not, like, again, that's not bad. Like, that doesn't mean the episode is bad. I just think it's slightly weaker than the previous episodes. But only because of the specific nitpicks I already had. And you gotta understand, like, those nitpicks I had are kind of severe. Like, if I had nitpicks about that kind of stuff in any other season, I think I would kind of actively dislike the episode. But that's kind of just a testament to how entertaining and fun this cast and season in general really is, that I still consider this episode to be good in spite of what I consider to be flaws with it. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Total Drama content like this. Share this with you. Share this video with your friends, to anyone who hasn't seen my content before. Comment down below, let me know what you guys think of the episode, if you agree or disagree. Be sure to be on the lookout for the Rajbo video essay that is definitely coming. Like, that is number 1 on my priority list of videos to make as soon as I'm done wrapping up this video. So trust me, it's coming, I promise. Aside from that, though, thank you guys so much for watching, and until then, peace.